Yeah, welcome to Improve 10x. So let's start with day 3 session. So guys, as we discussed yesterday we started just using classes and objects, right? Very basic level. Today we are going to explore more about like what is a class and why do we use class and what are real-time objects. As object-oriented programming key and these objects, is there any relation between them? We'll try to know more about those things and also we'll do some coding. So shall we get started? Yes. So let me share my screen. Yesterday, we started working on one problem, right? So let's continue from there, and then we'll see like what are the different things that we can actually look at. Let me just copy the code that we have used yesterday. Yesterday, what was the code that we used? We have tried creating this chocolate example, right? So let's just copy that code, and we'll use the same compiler which we have used yesterday, one compiler. Let me paste it. Let's run this. Whether it is working or not, we'll see. Yeah. So we have some issues over here. Shall we see and shall we try to resolve now? Let's go step by step. First thing, నిన్న మనం ఇక్కడ we have created one custom data type, which is a chocolate, right? And what can it hold? It can store a name, it can store a price, it can store discount percentage, and it can do certain actions. What are those actions? Calculate discount and print discount, right? So now let's try to see what are the mistakes that we have here in this particular code. If you see here, what is the error? In line number 21, original price. Let's go and see that. Yes. So in this line, do we have any problem? Can you see any issue in line number 21, anyone? If you see any problem, just type it in the chat box. Okay, one is 100F and the other one is star, exactly. So star is missing here. Since there is no operation like multiplication, it is actually creating a problem. And the other one is 100, should we use it as an integer or should we use it as a float? If you use as an integer, we have certain issues. So we are going to use it as a float. Float and ఎలా represent చేస్తాము? We use decimal value and we will also use f, right? Now let's try and see if it works. If it doesn't work, we'll try to see what is the next issue. Is it correct? My input is 120, discount percentage is 25, and the final output that I got is 13. So is it correct or wrong? If you agree, you can just type yes. If you don't agree, type no. So now let's try to see and like analyze more about this particular thing, like what we tried doing here. So ikkada we have two different types of things. One is data, right? Data means ఏదైనా కానీ information which we can store it in memory. So ఇలాంటి like a class లో we have two things. What are those two things now? Let's say if you take a class, what does it have? Class is nothing but data which can be stored in memory. And what is the other thing? We were able to create methods, right? Methods are nothing but actions. Basically, you are trying to like ask something or you are asking something to do. You are basically giving some instructions. Like a set of instructions to execute cheyandi అని చెప్పి. So it is nothing but data plus actions, right? So a class is a combination of data and actions. And are these related? ఈ data and actions related or completely different items? So if you see, all this information is related to a particular chocolate, only 5-star, right? Alage, e calculate discount and print discount, even these are using the same data which are related to 5-star, right? So together, the data and actions which are related to a particular entity, వాటిని మనం ఒక క్లాస్లో పెట్టాము, right? So now, ఇప్పుడు if you try to understand what exactly these actions are trying to do, these are managing this data, right? For example, if you see this action, which is calculate discount, what are we doing here? We are using some data, which is original price, discount percentage, and we are assigning it to some other data, which is discount amount. So finally, our method is just using these variables, right? So it is nothing but a behavior of this particular item. So ఈ ఐటమ్ యొక్క డిస్కౌంట్ మీరు క్యాల్కులేట్ చేయాలి అంటే యు ఆర్ యూజింగ్ సమ్ ప్రాపర్టీస్ ఆఫ్ దట్ ఐటమ్ అండ్ యు ఆర్ అసైనింగ్ ఇట్ టు సంథింగ్ ఎల్స్. అలాగే ఇఫ్ యూ సీ ద సెకండ్ మెథడ్, సెకండ్ ఫంక్షన్, వాట్ ఆర్ వి డూయింగ్ హియర్? We are trying to print something, and are you trying to use some variables in this class? We are using this variable, right? So basically every function is trying to access some data of that particular object. Is it clear, everyone? So now, can we understand that like class ante andulo unde two things which are data and actions. We can also call it as behavior. There are multiple names for this, and these two things related to a single entity, right? So this is how we have come up with a class. And then for example, ఇప్పుడు మీరు ఈ క్లాస్ అనేది క్రియేట్ చేశారు. నా క్లాస్ అనేది ఒక డేటా టైప్ లాగా అనుకున్నాం కూడా మనం, రైట్? We wanted to store related information at one place. That's the reason we came up with a class. Now ఇది డేటా టైప్ అయితే what will be a variable? Variable is nothing but an object. మనం నార్మల్గా ఒక వేరియబుల్ డిక్లేర్ చేయాలంటే ఎలా చేస్తాము? If it is of type integer, we will say int space variable name, right? Similarly for object, what do? We'll follow the same approach. If you see here, what did we do? First, we have given the data type, which is nothing but chocolate. And then we have given a variable name, which is nothing but 5-star. Now, integer, float, ivannitiki we did not do anything after declaring, like equal to new float, ila ivvaledu manam, right? But for objects, we are doing that. What is the reason? Let's try to understand that now. So when you see this on the right side, whenever you put new keyword, new is a keyword in Java. So new ane keyword use చేసినప్పుడు మాత్రమే memory allocation అనేది జరుగుతుంది. If you don't use this, if you just keep it like this, this doesn't have any value. You can't store any data for this. You can store data only when you assign some memory. Memory assign చేయాలంటే which keyword should we use in Java? What is the keyword that is used for memory allocation? It is new. So whenever you use the keyword new, we are allocating the memory. And enta memory allocate chestunnamo? Based on the data that is required according to these variables. దీనిలో ఒక స్ట్రింగ్ నేమ్ ఉంది, నేమ్కి ఎంత మెమరీ అవసరం అవుతుంది. అలాగే ఒరిజినల్ ప్రైస్, ఫ్లోట్ అంటే 4 bytes, ఇంట్ 4 bytes, ఫ్లోట్ 4 bytes, అలా ఓవరాల్గా లైక్ సర్టన్ అమౌంట్ ఆఫ్ మెమరీ అలొకేట్ అవుతుంది. అండ్ దెన్ whenever you use this variable and call dot, అందులో ఉన్న వేరియబుల్స్ అన్నిటిని యాక్సెస్ చేయొచ్చు, అండ్ యూ కెన్ అసైన్ వాల్యూస్ ఆర్ యూ కెన్ రీడ్. సో బేసిక్గా అందులో ఉన్న డేటా తెచ్చుకుంటున్నారు లేదా మోడిఫై చేస్తున్నారు. Yeah, Kashmi, I will explain the class again. We are going to understand class and objects in detail. Don't worry. Okay. So first thing, like how did we come up? Normally, మనం data store చేసుకోవాలంటే we have some primitive data types which are nothing but integer, float, double, ఇలాంటివి. And whenever you want to use these data types, we can use only numbers, right? అదే ఒకవేళ స్ట్రింగ్ ఏదైనా టెక్స్ట్ స్టోర్ చేసుకోవాలి అంటే we use string. But I want to store all the information related to one particular entity. So how are we going to do that? So that is what we are going to explore here today. Okay. Right. So now let's try to understand like a little bit more. For example, we'll take one small example. Today we are going to introduce something new to you guys. If you open our project screen here, you can see next session. మీరు డైరెక్ట్ ఇక్కడ నుంచే జాయిన్ అవ్వచ్చు. అలాగే you have the recordings available here. You can open the recordings and watch it here. And we have added a quiz also here. So we are going to work on this quiz today. So let me just show you one example, and then you will get better understanding of classes and objects today. So you can see all these are like a kind of tasks that you can actually work today after the session. So let me just go to a particular task. Now, if you see here, what are we trying to do here? Can anyone tell me? We have 6 variables. What are the first 3 variables storing, and what are the next 3 variables storing? We are storing a title, author, and genre, and related to one particular entity, right? So names manam ila ivvadam better, or is it better to do something else? Title 1, author 1, genre 1, alage malli title 2, author 2, genre 2 ila ivvadam better, or is it better to use some other type which can store all this information together? Which is better, multiple variables or together? If you prefer multiple, you can say type multiple. Yes, together it is preferable, right? So ila store chesukodaniki, do we have any data type? మన దగ్గర ఆల్రెడీ ప్రీ డిఫైన్డ్గా డేటా టైప్ ఉందా? నేను 3 స్ట్రింగ్స్ని టుగెదర్ స్టోర్ చేసుకోవాలనుకుంటున్నాను, ఆర్ అదర్వైజ్ 3 స్ట్రింగ్స్ని 2 ఇంటీజర్స్ని స్టోర్ చేసుకోవాలనుకుంటున్నాను. సో నథింగ్ బట్ రిలేటెడ్ టు వన్ పర్టికులర్ ఎంటిటీ. సో నౌ ఇన్ దిస్ పర్టికులర్ కేస్, దిస్ ఈజ్ యాక్చువల్లీ రిలేటెడ్ టు వన్ బుక్, రైట్? ఒక బుక్కి సంబంధించిన ఇన్ఫర్మేషన్ స్టోర్ చేసుకోవాలి అంటే వీఆర్ యూజింగ్ 3 వేరియబుల్స్. నౌ ఇఫ్ ఐ వాంట్ టు స్టోర్ అనదర్ బుక్, వాట్ ఆర్ వీ డూయింగ్? వీఆర్ డూయింగ్ అనదర్ 3 వేరియబుల్స్. అలా నాకు ఇంకొక బుక్ కావాలి. వాట్ షుడ్ వి డూ? హౌ మెనీ వేరియబుల్స్ ఆర్ నీడెడ్? I want another book, another 3 variables. Now I want to add another 10 books. How many variables are required for that? 10, right? Like 10 into 3, 30. So instead of creating these many variables, what are we trying to do? We are creating our own data type, which is nothing but a class basically. So ఆ క్లాస్లో మనకి ఏ వేరియబుల్స్ కావాలనుకుంటున్నామో అవి క్రియేట్ చేస్తున్నాం, జస్ట్ లైక్ దిస్ క్లాస్ బుక్, అండ్ దెన్ what all variables that you wanted to use. You wanted to use title, author, and genre, right? So just declare them. String title, string author, string genre, right? So now ఇప్పుడు నేను ఒక వేరియబుల్ క్రియేట్ చేస్తే చాలు బుక్కి. ఆ బుక్ని యూజ్ చేసుకొని ఐ కెన్ యాక్సెస్ ఆల్ దీస్ వేరియబుల్స్, రైట్? సో దిస్ ఈస్ హౌ వి ఆర్ యూజింగ్ క్లాస్. Now let's try to go back to our example. Alage ninna manam ikkada we did the same thing for 5-star and Dairy Milk, right? So whenever we were reading the code, it becomes very difficult. So alanti problems solve chesukodaniki we came up with this concept called class and then object. So now for example, nenu ikkada chocolate ane oka class create chesanu. Here if you see, I have created an object for chocolate class and dantlo mottam data store chesanu, right? Now I wanted to create another one for Dairy Milk. What should I do? Do the same thing. Create an object chocolate Dairy Milk equal to new. We have to allocate new memory, right? Chocolate done. And ఇప్పుడు మీరు డైరీ మిల్క్లో ఏమైనా ప్రాపర్టీస్ సెట్ చేయాలి అనుకుంటే యూ కెన్ సింప్లీ సే డైరీ మిల్క్. ఇక్కడ మీరు టైప్ చేయగానే సజెషన్స్ వస్తున్నాయి చూడండి. డాట్ అందులో టైటిల్ చేంజ్ చేయాలనుకుంటున్నాను. సో వీ హ్యావ్ ఎ నేమ్ వేరియబుల్, రైట్? సో గివ్ Dairy Milk. Done. Next, if I want to give the discount percentage, dot discount percentage, I want to give 40%. And now I wanted to give original price also, right? Let's say 200. And so this way, ఇప్పుడు all this code is related to one particular object. We can clearly understand that. Am I right? అలాగే ఇక్కడ ఉన్న code is related to something else. So this is how you can actually create multiple objects of a same class. And then ఆ code చదివినప్పుడు కూడా you can easily understand. when you are creating this particular object, you are creating a 5-star object, right? And then what is happening in this line? We are setting a name for 5-star object. We are setting a price for 5-star object. Similarly, percentage. Alage ikkada chuste, you can simply see dairy milk dot name, and we are giving the title dairy milk dot discount percentage. So we have created a new type, and we are using that to store the information, right? Any questions so far? Right. So now let's try to understand a little bit more. Now, whenever you're creating a class, so guys, already ఎవరికైతే క్లాసెస్ ఆబ్జెక్ట్స్ ఇవన్నీ బాగా వచ్చి ఉంటుందో వాళ్ళు కూడా like just focus on these best practices now. So we are going to discuss some best practices which will be helpful for you throughout your lifetime. మీరు రాసే కోడ్కి వేరే వాళ్ళు రాసే కోడ్కి ఉండే డిఫరెన్స్ ఏంటి అనేది ఇక్కడే మీకు తెలిసింది. ఓకే, సో నా లెట్స్ సీ. నేను ఇక్కడ ఒక క్లాస్ క్రియేట్ చేసినప్పుడు హౌ డిడ్ ఐ క్రియేట్ ఇట్? స్టార్టింగ్ లెటర్ క్యాపిటల్ ఉందా, స్మాల్ ఉందా? Is it a small letter or capital letter? It is capital letter, right? And if I want to like even chocolate kuda chudandi, chocolate lo C capital or small? It is always starting with capital letter, right? So when you say, when you are declaring classes, okay, so class names ela start cheyali? It should start with capital letter, right? And variable names ela start avali? Now see variable names. For example, ikkada meeru ee class lo title అని ఉంది. Title ela start అయింది? Small letter or capital letter? Small letter, right? So whenever you are declaring a variable, at dento start avali, it should always start with small letter. Start with small letter, right? Next, ఆ తర్వాత let's try to see few more things. Methods ఉన్నాయి. Methods దేంతో స్టార్ట్ అవుతున్నాయి? Small or capital? Yes, it is small. Yeah, so method names also start with small letter, right? First letter ఏంటి అనేది మనకు తెలిసింది. తర్వాత అలాగే there are few more things. For example, ఈ మెథడ్ నేమ్ చూడండి, print discount. How many words do we have in this? Print discount అనేది like how many words do we have? We have 2 words, right? So to connect them, we are not writing everything in small letters. What are we doing? Second word we are starting with capital letter, right? So this we call it as camel case. Camel case. Camel case ante ela untundi? It starts with small letter, but every next word starts with capital letter, right? Next, alage variable names చూద్దాం. Variable names ఎక్కడైనా multiple words ఉన్నాయో చూడండి. Can you tell me a line number where we have multiple words in a variable name? Tell me a line number where you can see multiple words in a single variable name. $28. So let's take original price. Original price ante how many words do we have? We have 2 words. So ikkada kuda what are we doing? First letter is starting with small letter, అండ్ మిగిలిన వర్డ్స్ అన్ని కూడా క్యాపిటల్ లెటర్తో స్టార్ట్ అవుతున్నాయి, రైట్? సో హియర్ ఆల్సో విచ్ కేస్ ఆర్ వి ఫాలోయింగ్? Camel case, right? So camel case ante first letter will always be small letter and all the next words will start with capital letters, right? Next, alage class names ekkadaina manaki multiple words unnaya chudandi. Do we have any other class name which has multiple words? We don't have it here. For example, if we have to create something like inkoka kotta class create cheyalanukunnam, let's say class book shop. How are we doing this? First letter capital undi and prati word ki first letter capital undi. Can you observe that? And this we call it as title case. So now when you see these kind of cases, ivi enduku rastamu enti anadi kuda we will see now. Right. So now నిన్న like one of you have shared some code. ఆ కోడ్ ఒకసారి ఇప్పుడు చూద్దాము and you guys tell me where like is it following these cases or not? Shall we see? Okay, so let's take this example. Ikkada class name, is it correct or does it have any mistake? Class name ela start avvali? What should be the first letter? It should be capital. If it is capital, just type C, guys. Type C if you want the class name to start with capital letter. Yes, it is capital letter, right? So ikkada manaki small letter to start ayindi. So this is one mistake that we can see. Next, alage do we have any other yeah, see discount percentage. Sorry, can you see my screen? Just hold on, guys, 1 minute. Yeah, can you see my screen now? Discount percentage, is it correct? ఇందులో క్యాపిటల్ లెటర్ ఏది ఉండాలి? Which letter should be in capital? Type the letter. P should be in capital, right? So that it becomes in camel case. Alage discount amount, which one should be in capital? It should be A, right? So this is, if we follow this practice, we will get to know that, like, okay, whenever you like for example, let's take this one. ఈ లైన్ చూసినప్పుడు డిస్కౌంట్ అమౌంట్ అంటే వాట్ ఈస్ దిస్? కెన్ వి అండర్స్టాండ్ దట్? ఈజ్ ఇట్ ఎ వేరియబుల్? ఈజ్ ఇట్ ఎ క్లాస్? ఈజ్ ఇట్ ఎ మెథడ్? Now if you see discount amount, we don't know whether it is a class or a variable because ikkada classes kuda small letters to use chestunnam, right? Ade okavela meeku ikkada small like if you are following this naming convention, can we understand whether this is a class? Class eppudaina small letter to start avutunda? Class will never start with small letter, right? So obviously based on this naming convention we'll get to know that. Alage in case if it is following camel case, original price, is this a variable or a function? Can we know that? Okavela P capital undi anukunda original price lo, is it a variable or a function? How can we know that? That was a mistake. Yeah, in this particular case it is like a variable, but ikkada manaki madhyalo oka into annadu miss ayindi kabatti, right? For example, if you see the same code here, original price, by seeing this you can say that this is a variable, right? But camel case manam inkoka daggara kuda use chestunnam, method names. Why this is not a method? Just adi chusinappudu adi method kaadani ela anukuntunnaru? What is the reason behind it? Because any function will have brackets, right? So camel case with brackets unte what do we call it? Camel case with brackets. What do we call it? It is a method. Camel case without brackets, camel case without parentheses. These are called variables. Right. So now, if we follow these kind of practices, we get to know like which, like what is what and all, and it becomes easier to read and understand the code. So now let's go and see a few examples now. If you see here, title 1, does it have a good naming convention? ఇది ప్రాపర్ గా ఉందా? లైక్ క్యామెల్ కేస్ ఫాలో అవుతుందా? If yes, type yes. Yes, it is following because like it is following camel case. ఒకటే వర్డ్ ఉంది and that is starting with small letter. Next, అలాగే you can see all these variables. These are following proper naming convention. No issues. Let's see some other example. Now, int a, is this following naming convention properly? Camel case lo follow avutunda? Yes, it is following, right? But do we have any problems here? Manaki ikkada idi chudagane, are we able to understand? Can we understand this code, what exactly it is doing? No. So what should we do? ఇప్పటి వరకు we have seen how to write, like what format, camel case or title case ila, right? And if you see the class name, is this correct? Speed calculator, does it have a proper case? Does it have title case? Prati word ki first letter camel case unda, like title case unda, capital letter? Okay, let me ask the question again. Speed calculator class, is it correct or wrong? Correct అయితే y అని టైప్ చేయండి, రాంగ్ అయితే నో అంటే n అని టైప్ చేయండి. Yes, it is correct because it is using title case. ప్రతి వర్డ్ యొక్క ఫస్ట్ లెటర్ క్యాపిటల్ లెటర్ ఉన్నాయి, రైట్? Now I'll ask you some questions which are not relevant to this particular code. You can see system, right? S అంటే ఇప్పుడు like S is capital letter. Is it a class or is it an object? Is it a variable? System and like based on this naming convention, can you tell me? Is it a class? If yes, type Y. System, is it a class or a variable? Class. If you say class, you can type C. If it is a variable, type V. System is a class or variable? Yes, it is a class because it is following title case. And after system, you have something out. What is out? Is it a class or a variable? Out. Is it a class or a variable? It is a variable because it is following camel case and it doesn't have parentheses, right? Now, next, we have println. Is it, it is following camel case, and is it a variable or a function? If it is variable, type V. If it is function, type F. We discussed this just now, right? So whenever you have a camel case kind of thing, with parenthesis, it is a function. Without parenthesis, it is a variable. ఇక్కడ parenthesis ఉన్నాయా మనకి, brackets ఉన్నాయా ka? It is starting with a bracket, right? So it means it is a function, right? Alage. Now here you can see string and it starts with S. So what does that mean? String ante ippudu class a variable? It is a class. Yes, you can just type the first letter, guys. That is good enough. Yes, string is a class. By seeing the like a title case, we can easily identify that. And what is args? Yeah, Nikita, we will repeat definitely. So basically we have identified these cases, right? Class ante nemo we have to write it in title case. You can see every word is starting with capital letter. Ade variable names and method names aithe we are using camel case. Camel case ante first letter will be small letter and every other word starts with capital letter, so that you can see ikkada first is small undi, next is capital undi, right? So this way we are using camel case and title case. ఇవి యూజ్ చేయడం వల్ల మనకు వచ్చే బెనిఫిట్ ఏంటంటే whenever you see some code, you will be able to understand whether it is a class or a variable or a function or a package or something. We'll get clarity on those things, right? So now we are just trying to identify those patterns here. Now, if you see here ARGS, args, is it in camel case or is it in title case? If it is in title case, type T. If it is in camel case, type C. It is in camel case, right? So does it mean, is it a class or is it a variable? It is a variable, right? So we're able to understand the code. Now, shall we see a little bit more complicated one? Inkoka complicated example తీసుకొని, shall we try to identify those things? Yes. So yesterday, one of you guys have shared some code snippet, right? Just try to do the same thing on that. Yeah. So let's take one example which was shared by Sai Sri. So we'll just try to see like what all variables do we have and all. Can we identify whether it is correct or wrong? Let's start from the second line. Main anundi. Main anundi. What is it? It is starting with capital M. So is it a class or variable? It is a class. Right. Next, we have scanner. Line number 5 we have something called scanner. Right? It is maximum. Yeah. So it is starting with S. So it is a class. And after that we have something called SC. What is this? Variable or a class? It is a variable, right? And then you have new keyword which is for memory allocation. Tarvata malli S capital letter to start ayindi. Again it is a class, right? Now again here you have something called system with capital letter. What is it? Class or variable? Class. And dot in ante variable or class? It is variable. Now again after that you can see a lot of things. Next int anundi. Is it following camel case or title case? Next int. It is following camel case. So is it a variable or a function? So whenever you see camel case, you need to identify whether you have the parenthesis or not. If you have parenthesis, what is that? It is a function, not a variable. Next int tarvata chudandi. You have brackets, which means it is a function. If you don't have brackets, it will become variable, right? Alage like let's see, FIB anundi ikkada. Line number 12. FIB. What is this? Variable or a function? It is a function, right? And now in line number 10 we have N. Is it correct or wrong? Correct aithe C and type cheyandi, wrong aithe W and type cheyandi. Line number 10 lo int N. N is capital letter. Is it correct? Variable say form use cheyali, camel case or title case? It is actually wrong because variables should always use camel case. So first letter should be a small letter, right? So this is a like mistake. In case manam better ga rayalante n should be small letter, right? Is it clear everyone now? So ila rayadam valla entante whenever you see something, you don't need to go to declaration and see whether it is like class or object or method or something. Direct akkade choose manam we can easily identify, right? So now if you see here, line number 21, FIB, what is this? Class, method, variable? Yes, it is a function or a method, right? Alage N anundi. N ante variable or function? It is a variable, right? So we have followed very simple techniques, but if we throughout our lifetime follow avadam valla mana code it will look much cleaner and simpler. Is it clear for everyone? And To get this kind of experience, you have to keep doing this. Whenever you are writing code, just remember one thing, guys, whether we are giving proper names or not. Don't assume that నేను ఇప్పుడు ఫస్ట్ ఏదో ఒక నేమ్ ఇస్తాను తర్వాత చేంజ్ చేస్తాను అనుకోకండి. That next time will never come. So whenever you are trying to write, try to write the clean code. And once you write clean code, this becomes more readable and understandable for people. Companies lo people want this kind of good code only. They won't allow like using inappropriate like formats. So whenever you are writing a class, we should always use title case. If you are using variable names or method names, you should always use camel case. Is it clear for everyone? Now, shall we discuss about a few more things like classes and objects gurinchi? So now we have also discussed about like class ante eppudu use chestam enti annadi, right? So let's think about object oriented programming. So when you talk about object oriented programming, our object ki ee object ki do we have any relation? So why Java is an object oriented programming language, and why like the society is very obsessed with object oriented programming? Ee concept meede enduku anta focus chestunaru? What is the reason? So the main purpose of object oriented programming language is we wanted to consider everything as an object. And when you take an object, it has two things. What are those two things? It can have some data and it can do certain actions. You take any object, ee rendu kaakunda vere usually undavu manaki. For example, if you take your laptop, what can it store? It can store a lot of data, like in terms of files ayi undachu, movies ayi undachu, or images ayi undachu, anything, right? And what can it do? It has certain actions. It can open a particular URL. It has like multiple applications. You can open application, install application, delete application, and all. This is like a complex example, computer system. If you take a small example, let's take maybe we'll take one of the normal object, which is nothing but a fan. Okay, if you take a fan, does fan have some information in it? Fan ki any information untunda? Sure. Okay, let's take a simple scenario. You are going to a particular shop and then you wanted to purchase a fan. మీరు జస్ట్ వెళ్ళి ఫ్యాన్ ఇచ్చేయండి అని చెప్తారా? వాట్ విల్ యూ టెల్ ద షాప్ కీపర్? ఏమేమి అడుగుతారు? You will be asking price, you will be asking speed, you will be asking color, you will be asking design. There are multiple things of that which are related to a fan, right? So ee properties anni kuda don't you think it is a data? A brand, yes. Durability, ఎన్ని years ఉంటుంది, వారంటీ ఉందా, and how long is the warranty, and what is the weight of that fan? So there are multiple properties, right? ఇవన్నీ కూడా like, does it come into actions or data? Data or actions? It comes into data, right? Alage fan, yes. So actions ante performing something, but data ante storing something. So when we discuss about these things, properties and all, is it data or action? We are storing some information, right? Dani color edi, dani size enta, daniki enni wings unnayi, dani weight enta, dani price, all these things are properties, right? But when it comes to actions, what can it actually do? What can a fan do? It can start, it can stop, it can increase the speed, it can decrease the speed. All these are actions. Am I right? So object has two things. One is data, the other one is actions. The actions anni enti aa data meeda depend ayi untayi basically. Now let's take another example. For example, let's say maybe if we take a normal general example, which is a car. Car ki do we have data and actions? Yes, we do have data and actions. Can you give me some examples for data? Primary things వచ్చేసేయండి, కలర్ ఇలాంటివన్నీ వస్తాయి, రైట్? బట్ లెట్స్ ట్రై టు అండర్స్టాండ్ అ లిటిల్ బిట్ మోర్. మనం ఆల్రెడీ అనుకున్నాం 5 స్టార్లో కూడా డేటాకి యాక్షన్స్కి మధ్యలో ఉన్న రిలేషన్ ఏంటి అనేది అబ్జర్వ్ చేసాం, రైట్? సో ఇఫ్ యూ టేక్ అ పర్టికులర్ కార్లో అలాంటివి ఎలా ఉంటాయి చెప్పండి? మైలేజ్, యా, ఓకే. Now let's try to understand this with a real-time scenario again. Now I want to go to some place. What should I do first? I need a car object. Ante naku oka car kavali. Car is nothing but an object for me. So I'll get a car. And after that, what should I do? నా దగ్గర కార్ ఆబ్జెక్ట్ ఉంది అనుకోండి. ఇఫ్ ఐ వాంట్ టు గో టు సమ్ ప్లేస్, వాట్ షుడ్ ఐ డూ? ఫస్ట్ థింగ్, షుడ్ ఐ గెట్ ఇన్ టు ద కార్ ఆర్ నాట్? కార్లోకి వెళ్ళాలంటే డూ వీ నీడ్ టు డూ సంథింగ్? వాట్ షుడ్ వి డూ టు గెట్ ఇన్సైడ్ ద కార్? The first action that you need to do is car.open door, right? So car lo oka action undi. What is that action? Open the door. Next, you got it into the car. Next, what should we do? Car.close the door, right? Without closing, will you go directly? So even every small minute things are also actions and you have to implement them. Manam implement cheyakunda danantata adi edi kuda work avadu programming lo. Remember that, guys, everyone. Okay? Now, once you have got into the car, you close the door. After that, what are we going to do? You are going to press the start button, right? So car.start. Next, start ayin tarvata what should we do? Car. If it is automated car, you will have some way. If it is a manual car, you will have some things, right? So if it is a manual car, what will you do? Car.change gear. And దాంట్లో మీరు గేర్ నెంబర్ పంపించాలి ఇన్పుట్, బికాస్ యు ఆర్ డిసైడింగ్ ద గేర్, రైట్? car.change gear 1. And then what is the next step? car.release handbrake. And then car.accelerate. So ఇలా you have to call each and every function, right? మనం చేసే ప్రతి యాక్షన్ ఆ ఆబ్జెక్ట్లో ఉండే ఒక మెథడ్ని కాల్ చేయడమే బేసికల్లీ. So if you want to implement a car, we are calling all these actions. Now let's try to take one action and we'll see what are the variables that are related with that. Shall we? For example, oka car lo nen start button press chesinappudu what should happen? I just pressed on the start button. What should happen? Car initial ga off ane state lo undi, akkada nunchi on ane state loki vellali. So what kind of data is it? On and off, two states unnai. Which data type can I use? Which data type should we use we can store Boolean, right? Boolean ante only two things, either true or false. We can store Boolean. Next, start ayindi. Now let's take another method which is change gear. So నేను gear change చేసి ఒక వాల్యూ పంపిస్తున్నాను అంటే కరెంట్ గేర్ ఏ ఉంది అన్న స్టోర్ చేసుకోవడానికి ఒక వేరియబుల్ కావాలి కదా. సో what is that variable name? It can be a current gear. And what is the data type? It can be integer. So if you see any object, we are trying to relate these two things. One is data, the other one is actions. Data ni actions modify chestu untai continuously. That is how the object will actually operate. Did you guys understand, everyone? You take any object, it will have data definitely ga untundi. Actions, it might be some objects might not have it. But most of them will have data and objects for sure. Now, you guys tell me some examples. Evana meeku nachina objects evana type cheyandi. Which one can we call it as an object? మీ ఇంట్లో మీ సరౌండింగ్స్ లో కనబడుతున్న ఆబ్జెక్ట్స్ లో ఏదైనా ఒక ఆబ్జెక్ట్ నేమ్ అక్కడ టైప్ చేయండి ఇప్పుడు కామెంట్ బాక్స్ లో. మిక్సర్, ఎస్, మిక్సర్ ఈజ్ అన్ ఆబ్జెక్ట్. ఇంకా can you see any other object? Anyone? AC, water bottle, yes, laptop. Now ఇవన్నీ మనకి ఫిజికల్ గా కనిపించేది, రైట్? ఫిజికల్ గా కనపడకపోయినా మొబైల్, all these things, right? Physical గా కనపడకపోయినా కూడా we consider them as objects sometimes. For example, ఇప్పుడు మీకు ఇంటర్నెట్ వస్తుంది. ఇంటర్నెట్, is it an object or not? And అలాగే లైక్ యు ఆర్ గెటింగ్ సమ్ డేటా త్రూ ఇంటర్నెట్. ఆ డేటా అనేది కూడా మనకు ఆబ్జెక్ట్ అయినా? ఇట్ ఈస్ ఇన్ఫర్మేషన్, ఇట్ ఈస్ ఆబ్జెక్ట్, రైట్? అలాగే ఇఫ్ లెట్స్ సే మీరు పడుకున్నారు అండ్ యూ గాట్ ఎ డ్రీమ్, కెన్ వి కాల్ దట్ డ్రీమ్ యాజ్ అన్ ఆబ్జెక్ట్? we can call it, because ఆ డ్రీమ్ ని మీరు విజువలైజ్ చేయాలి, ఎవరికైనా చెప్పాలి అన్నా కూడా యూ హ్యావ్ టూ థింగ్స్. వన్ ఈస్ అందులో ఉన్న ఇన్ఫర్మేషన్ ఏంటి, అందులో మీరు ఏం చేశారు. దీస్ టూ థింగ్స్ యూ కెన్ సే, రైట్? So that way we actually can consider anything as an object. And object ఏ type అంటే it will be of some type class. ఆ class మనం తయారు చేసేది. So that is a primary reason why we use classes and objects in programming language. Whether it is Kotlin, Python, Java or any language, object-oriented programming language లో classes and objects are primary things. మీరు ఏది బిల్డ్ చేయాలన్నా కూడా it will be of using classes and objects. Is it clear, everyone? Now, let's do one more small thing. So guys, as I mentioned in the platform లో మీకు ఇప్పుడు let me just open it. Yes, you can see a quiz option here, right? Can you see, everyone? You can click on that quiz option. This is actually not like a yes or no kind of quiz. What we are trying to do is we are trying to apply whatever we have learned so far. For example, ikkada first challenge undi manaki. The challenge is cleaning up messy code. Ikkada some messy code undi. We have it in Java, Python and like Kotlin. Mooditlo kuda manaki examples unnai. If you want to work on Java, you can simply just go and copy this code, go into your editor, paste it. Now try to see what is the mistake here. First you can just go through the information. Not visible, sir. Or you can just refresh that. If you refresh it, you will be able to see that text. Is it visible now? So now take a look at this temperature conversion code and see if you can improve it. So దీంట్లో ఏమైనా ప్రాబ్లమ్స్ ఉన్నాయా? How can we improve it? We can just try to understand. First one, temp converter అని ఉంది. Is it correct? Temp converter, is it having a good name? It is following title case, but temp అన్నది temperature అని మనకి clarity ఇస్తుందా? It can be either temporary or temperature, right? So which is better? Temp converter better, temperature converter better? It is temperature converter, right? So instead of temp converter, change it to temperature converter. Done. Now next, is it following title case? Yes, it is following. Tarvata main method undi. Ikkada Celsius equal to 25 అని ఉంది. Is it okay? Is this line good? Celsius double data type use చేశారు and then they are using Celsius which is in camel case. Is it looking good? Celsius అన్న వర్డ్ ఫార్మాట్ అయితే ప్రాపర్ గానే ఉంది, లైక్ క్యామెల్ కేస్ యూస్ చేస్తుంది. బట్ సెల్సియస్ అన్నది యూజువల్లీ వాట్ ఆర్ వి ట్రైంగ్ టు స్టోర్? ఇట్ ఈస్ ద టెంపరేచర్, రైట్? సో ఇట్స్ ఆల్వేస్ బెటర్ టు గివ్ అ మీనింగ్ఫుల్ నేమ్. అది కొద్దిగా లెంతీ ఉన్నా పర్వాలేదు కానీ గివ్ అ బెటర్ అండ్ మీనింగ్ఫుల్ నేమ్స్. ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్, ఇన్ దిస్ కేస్ ఐ కెన్ డూ సంథింగ్ లైక్ ఐఎమ్ యాక్చువల్లీ స్టోరింగ్ ద టెంపరేచర్, రైట్? Temperature in Celsius. Now if you try to read this, what does it say? It is saying what you are storing and it is also saying what units you are storing, right? So it becomes more easy to read. Whenever people read this code, they can understand what exactly you are storing and what are the units. Alage F1 undi ikkada. F ante enti? Fahrenheit. So Fahrenheit anedi atla F1 use cheyadam better. It's better to change it. So what should we do? Again, here also we have to do the same mechanism. Temperature, which starts with small letter, in Fahrenheit. Fahrenheit. So now variable name might be little bigger, but it gives you a better understanding of like what exactly is it, right? So ఈ విధంగా you can just try to make all these changes, run this code, whether it is working fine or not. ఒకవేళ once it starts working fine, go back to the code, go back to the platform. లాస్ట్ మీకు ఒక స్మాల్ చెక్ లిస్ట్ ఉంది చూడండి ఇక్కడ. ఈ చెక్ లిస్ట్ లో యూ కెన్ సీ 1 by 1 ఆర్ ద వేరియబుల్ నేమ్స్ క్లియర్ అండ్ డిస్క్రిప్టివ్ డన్. సో జస్ట్ గో అండ్ చెక్ ఇట్. ఇప్పుడు అన్ని వేరియబుల్ నేమ్స్ కరెక్ట్గా ఉన్నాయా? ఇది కరెక్టే ఉంది, ఇది కరెక్టే ఉంది. ఇక్కడ యూస్ చేసే దగ్గర కూడా యూ హ్యావ్ టు మోడిఫై దట్ అండ్ సీ ఇఫ్ ఇట్ ఈస్ yes, then go to the next point. Our comments used to explain the code's purpose. Now see, అసలు మనకి ఇక్కడ ఈ కమెంట్ అవసరం ఉందా? ఇంకా do we need this comment? when we can write our code much better, which explains itself, we don't need comment, right? Comments ఎప్పుడు యూస్ చేయాలంటే when we need some extra logic, ఏదైనా ఒక సీక్రెట్ లాజిక్ ఉంది లేదా చాలా కాంప్లికేటెడ్ లాజిక్ ఉంది, అలాంటప్పుడు you can use it. Now here also you are saying formula for foreign hate. Do we need that? అది చూస్తే మనకు అర్థం కావట్లేదు. So we can remove this also. And do we need this? Our class name is clearly saying temperature converter, and our methods are also very clear that prati variable ఏం చేస్తుంది ఏంటి అన్నది. So we don't need even this also, right? So this way try to improvise your code so that your code will look simpler, cleaner and easy to maintain. అలాగే ఇప్పుడు ఇంకా there are few more checkpoints, right? Is there a function to handle the temperature conversion? So now can we actually create a separate function for this? మెయిన్ ఫంక్షన్లో రాయకుండా can we do this? Public static ఒక కొత్త ఫంక్షన్ తయారు చేస్తున్నాను, and what should we get in return? We are getting a foreign hit value, right? So which is, what is the data type? Double. So now what are we trying to convert? And what should we give? Convert Celsius to Fahrenheit, and input ఏంటి? We need to pass a Celsius, right? Which is double temperature in Celsius. So ఇలా ఇచ్చి, if you write this logic, ఈ ఫార్ములా ఏదైతే మీరు ఇప్పుడు క్రియేట్ చేశారో, we can just move it here. Simply just return this formula directly, return, and then we are printing this. Now ikkada instead of calling this, what are we doing? Formula direct call cheyakunda we are calling the convert Celsius method, and we are passing the temperature method. Ante manam brackets lo parameter pass cheyali kada, we are passing the temperature in Celsius. So this line might be little bigger, but can we understand each and every word in this now? Yes, we can, right? So this is how, like, you can write more readable code. And interviews lo when you write this kind of code, ekkadaithe meeru like simple variables a b c ivi kaakunda, temporary variables temp x y z ilantivi kaakunda ila meaningful names eppudaithe use chestaro, your value goes like 10x more times. And most of the students, or even most of the employees, current working employees also, will not follow all these rules. If we follow, are these very hard? If rules follow them hard or easy? Hard aithe h type cheyandi, easy aithe e type cheyandi. These are very simple, these are very easy to follow, and it doesn't take much time also. But if we follow avadam valla, you'll get an extra advantage. That is the reason why we are discussing about these best practices. So whenever you're writing names, follow whether it is title case or camel case, based on class or variable or like objects are based on these things, and alage give meaningful names. Now if you go back to checklist, see here, did we complete this checklist? Ee point kuda work ayinda? This done. Alage is user input handled and potential errors addressed. So this is for advanced level who already know programming and errors ela validate cheyali anadi kavali anukunte, you can try this guys. Otherwise you can ignore this point at this point of time. Going forward we will see how to do that. Alage similarly we have, is the code properly formatted and indented? Ante code formatting kuda manaki one of the key points. So can I put something like this? ఒకటి ఇక్కడ ఇలా పెట్టచ్చా? We have to make sure put it in a proper indentation, same line lo ala proper ga undali. Even this spacing మీరు ప్రాపర్ గా ఒక స్టెప్ వైజ్ లాగా వచ్చాయి. This is a kind of code which looks better and for readable and understanding. దీన్ని మీరు ఒక సింపుల్ ప్రోగ్రామింగ్ పెద్దగా తెలియని వాళ్ళకి ఇచ్చిన అర్థం చేసుకోగలుగుతారు. ప్రోగ్రామింగ్ బాగా వచ్చిన వాళ్ళకి ఇస్తే కనుక దే విల్ బి లైక్ హ్యావింగ్ ఎ గ్రేట్ ఇంప్రెషన్ ఆన్ యూ ఫర్ రైటింగ్ దిస్ కైండ్ ఆఫ్ గ్రేట్ కోడ్. Do you want to write this kind of code from now? So this is your chance today. your assignment is, we have 10 different problems here, and all these are small problems only. ఇవన్నీ మీరు డెఫినెట్గా చేయాలన్న రూల్ కూడా కాదు, బట్ if you can actually complete all these problems, you'll get a much better understanding of how to write better and clean code. ఫస్ట్ మనం చేసిన ఈ కొన్ని కాన్సెప్ట్స్ తోటి చేస్తే గోయింగ్ ఫార్వర్డ్ మనం యూస్ చేసే కాంప్లెక్స్ ప్రాబ్లమ్స్ కూడా చాలా సింపుల్గా ఈజీగా అండర్స్టాండ్ చేసుకోగలుగుతాం. అండ్ దిస్ ఈస్ వెరీ యూస్ఫుల్ వెన్ యు ఆర్ వర్కింగ్ ఆన్ డేటా స్ట్రక్చర్స్ అండ్ ఆల్గరిథమ్స్ ఆల్సో. కాంప్లెక్స్ ప్రాబ్లమ్స్ ట్రీస్ మీద, గ్రాఫ్స్ మీద ఇలాంటివి సాల్వ్ చేసేటప్పుడు దిస్ బికమ్స్ యువర్ సేవియర్ యాక్చువల్లీ. ఓకే, so from now onwards, whenever you are writing code, try to use these principles and make sure you write better code. And let me tell you just one small thing, guys. Whenever you go for a particular company or an interview, or even when you are working on a project, మీరు ఈ ఫార్మాట్స్ ఇవన్నీ ఫాలో అయ్యి, ఈ ప్రిన్సిపల్స్ ఫాలో అయ్యి, if you are able to write better code, your chances will go up like again 10x times, as I said earlier, right? So always look for betterment. Don't look for just output వస్తే చాలా అనుకోకండి. We are looking for good code, better code, and that is going to be our differentiating factor. 100 members ఒక ఇంటర్వ్యూకి వచ్చినా కూడా మీకంటూ ఒక స్పెషల్ పొజిషన్ డెఫినెట్గా ఉంటుంది. ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ లెట్స్ సే మీకు ఒక 5 క్వశ్చన్స్ ఇచ్చారు కోడింగ్లో, 5లో మీరు 2 క్వశ్చన్సే చేశారు, బట్ యూ హ్యావ్ ఆల్ దిస్ కైండ్ ఆఫ్ బెస్ట్ ప్రాక్టీసెస్ అండ్ ఆల్. విల్ యూ గెట్ ఎ ఛాన్స్ టు క్లియర్ ద ఇంటర్వ్యూ? స్టూడెంట్స్లో ప్రాబ్లమ్ని సాల్వ్ చేసే వాళ్ళు చాలా మంది ఉంటారు, బట్ ఇలా మంచి కోడ్ రాసే వాళ్ళు చాలా తక్కువ మంది ఉంటారు. యూ విల్ స్టాండ్ as హ్యావ్ ఎ స్పెషల్ ప్లేస్ ఫర్ that particular advantage. So that is the reason, follow these best practices. Write clean code. Clean code lo whatever we have discussed today, naming practices and all, these are some small things. Inka ala there are many other things which will make your code much better and optimized. So let's start writing clean code, readable code, and all these things. So if you have any questions, we can discuss it during the question and answer session today. Okay, so that's it for today, guys. Today you can continue on these tasks, and if you have any questions, you can just connect with us on the Discord and like during the question and answer session also. Thank you.